Hello, everyone. Welcome to week number 2 of English 111. I hope that you're all doing well. I hope that you survived the snowpocalypse this weekend. It was kind of intense, the amount of snow that we got. I know basically I was stuck at home for a couple of days because of all the, ice and stuff. We are on week number 2, and I'm going to be going through and finishing up grades for week number 1. So stay tuned for some feedback on those different items. So, being that it's week number 2, I'm going to focus and shift gears a little bit by talking about, well, obviously what we're doing this week, but also the autobiographical narrative. So that is our first major paper of the semester. And I did link it back in week number 1. So if you click back on week number 1, you'll be able to read the directions here. So basically for this paper, what you're going to do is you're going to write a 2-page essay about the most significant event that has happened in your life, and using sensory details along with the lasting impact it has had on you as an individual, you're going to describe the event through the form of a story of sorts, okay? And you'll see an example of an autobiographical narrative in the week number 2 module so you can have some context for what I'm referring to. All right. So, also there is a Dropbox for this in the week 2 module for you to generate your ideas for your paper, but ultimately your essay, like any essay, should have a thesis statement. So your thesis statement should answer the question of what was the most significant event in my life and how has it had a lasting impact on me as a person I am today. Now, since this is more of a personal essay, I like to begin the semester this way because I feel that before you begin working with sources, you need to learn how to tap into the most important source of all, which is your history, yourself, you as an individual, right? So the autobiographical narrative allows you to do that by focusing on one specific event. So if I were to write this paper, maybe I would write mine about one summer afternoon when I was like 9 years old, where I went outside and I saw my grandmother sitting on a crate in her garden, just pulling weeds and throwing them in the air. And she invited me over to go weed in the garden with her, and that kind of inspired me to develop a love of gardening. And my whole paper, my 2-page essay would focus on writing about how that event progressed, talking about the nature, the imagery, the like how did the warm sun feel on my skin, like so many different sensory details using my 5 senses to help draw the audience in, all right? So that's going to be the most difficult part of this paper, is using those sensory details. Do I expect you to have like a constant flow of sensory details in every sentence? No. You want to allow your audience to breathe a little bit, but I would recommend your paper, maybe every other sentence or every 2 sentences, have a solid sensory detail to really draw your audience in. Now, the other thing that really makes this paper challenging is the fact that sometimes people will focus on a series of events as opposed to one event. Say, like, let's pretend that I wanted to write about being in band in high school, and instead of focusing on one event, I focused on my entire 4 years of high school in band. That would be a lot of jumping around. It would mean that you really wouldn't get to focus on one moment where you could really bring in some sensory details. So that would work against me if I wrote that. So I would need to focus on one particular event. Maybe my first time in marching band at a football game. Maybe my last time, on the marching field, like on the football field in a marching band. Like, so pick one of those particular events and stick with that. If you end up struggling with that, let me know. We can work via email. I can hop on Zoom and help you. I'm really, really nerdy and good with idea generating. So, I do have due dates listed here. So the final draft will not be due until February 4th, which I believe that should be a Sunday night. But so there will be week number 3, cannot speak today. You will be in groups of about 2 to 3 and in a discussion board, and you will be giving each other feedback on each other's papers. So keep in mind, other people might be reading your work outside of me, so take that into consideration while you are writing about your topic. The following week, leading up to the due date, I will be giving everybody some quick feedback on their drafts, so you'll have two layers of feedback before you submit your final draft. Okay. I really value and prioritize students getting feedback on their things, mostly because it's ultimately just going to help you, right? Now, one final thing with the autobiographical narrative. Remember, like I said when I went over the syllabus, I want you to exercise your judgment when it comes to what you choose to write about. You don't have to write about a positive thing. You can write about a negative thing if you want as well. However, remember, your mental health matters more to me. So if you are going to be writing about something negative or something difficult, like past events, past trauma, exercise your discretion when writing that, all right? Mostly because I don't want you to have to get stuck writing something where it's going to ultimately be painful for you to recollect on such things. If you're at a point where you feel good about writing about something like that, that's great. But just exercise that judgment. If for some reason you do write about something difficult and you're like halfway through like generating your ideas or creating an outline and you need to switch topics, just let me know. That's totally fine with me. But again, I just want you to prioritize your own mental health when referencing to past events. All right. So, going back to week number two, so if you'll see here that I have like the to-do list, okay? I have that sample autobiographical narrative that you're going to need to read, and then you're going to respond to it in discussion post number two. I want to highlight, make sure that you respond to classmates' posts. That way you get full credit for your discussion posts. And then you'll see right here that I have a Dropbox for your autobiographical narrative pre-writing and outline. All right. So you're going to need to do not only an outline, but also a pre-writing. Additionally, I'm going to have to open up the slideshow so I can show you what I'm talking about with regard to an outline. But update that really quick. But you're going to submit both of those documents to this. I like everyone to have a document for their pre-writing, which is your idea generation, and one for their outline, which is you structuring your paper to determine what the organization will be. I do have the autobiographical narrative directions linked in right here, so you can go back and read those instead of going back to the week number one module. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the writing process first. All right. I have this graphic right here that illustrates the circular nature of the writing process, and I'm a stickler when it comes to the writing process because a lot of people, when they are writing something, they just open up a Word document and jump right in without any preparation. And I think it's actually better for a writer to really go into writing a paper or anything for that matter, having a game plan ready to go. So you'll see here that the first step of the writing process is pre-writing. This is where you begin jotting down your ideas for your essay. And I'll always give you some prompts to help you begin generating your ideas. But pre-writing can take on many, many different forms. I like to do bullet point lists when I'm pre-writing. However, some people like to do word webs. I don't know if you remember what word webs are, but they are one of the first forms of pre-writing we learn as young writers. So like you'll have your idea in the middle. It would look kind of like this. You would have your topic idea in the middle, and then you would have spokes outward, with maybe like your different subtopics and then additional spokes around those. I mean, it's very visual. A lot of people really like to do that. And it's a really good way to pre-write and get your ideas down. Some people like to do journaling. Some people like to do mind maps. They look kind of similar to word webs, but instead they're like maybe squares with written thoughts in them with arrows pointing to, sub thoughts, etc. Honestly, I'm like whatever way works best for you with pre-writing, go for it. I prefer bullet point listing because it's a little less complicated and it's a little less, visual because I'm at this point in my life where I want to get to the point. I don't always need a visual to get me through. Once you're done with pre-writing, that's when you move to drafting. So when you're drafting something, you begin with creating an outline. Now, I know that a lot of people really, really hate outlining because it can be time consuming. However, an outline is going to save your life when it comes to, creating your organizational strategy for your essay. So I'll give you an example of what an outline would look like. So let's pretend that I am, you know, uh, beginning my paper and I'm making an outline. So I might begin with listing out what I want in my introduction. All right. So then I would go through and list out the sub areas of what I want in my introduction. So first, I would want to have a hook that brings the audience in and gets them hooked to what I'm about to talk about. I'll be talking more about that next week in next week's lecture video, by the way, when I go over introductions and stuff. So I'm going to have a hook. I'm going to provide some details on past, like this particular event. Okay, and then I'm going to have my main point. Your thesis statement for this essay doesn't need to be in the introduction, but a lot of people find it easy for it to be in the introduction. The other two papers, your thesis will need to be in your introduction. So then what I might do is, let me see if I can get the bullets to cooperate. Then I'm going to have my body paragraphs, right? And then I'm going to note what I'm going to do in each of my body paragraphs. So paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and I would just jot down some notes on like what I would want each of them to accomplish, so on and so forth. And then, of course, I would have my conclusion, which will kind of bring everything in full circle. All right. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here in just a moment when I show you the structure that I'm envisioning for the autobiographical narrative essay. But once you're done with outlining, that's the first step of drafting. This is what you would take to then begin writing a full rough draft. After you're done with a rough draft and you're doing peer reviews and conferencing with me, you're going to revise. So revision asks you to look at the global aspects of your essay. Do you have sensory details? Do you have a thesis statement? Is it organized well? The editing portion, this is where you apply some of those edits, but you're also looking at the nitty-gritty things like punctuation, spelling, grammar. A lot of people get really caught up in the punctuation, spelling, and grammar, but the truth is these bigger aspects like thesis, sensory details, those are the big areas you want to look at. And then once you're done with, those processes, publication or submission, right? So that's the lovely thing about this. Like it just transitions one into the other. Now, when it comes to outlining, this is supposed to be actually, this is the wrong slide. I'm gonna have to post the correct slide. So my bad. I had the wrong slideshow posted up on e-learning. What else is new? But I will be posting the correct slideshow, which will show you what each section of the autobiographical narrative asks. So that should be up here in just a few. But if you have any questions as you go along and begin your pre-writing and your outlining, let me know. And ultimately, I'm really excited. I hope that you have fun writing this paper because it's meant to be fun. All right. Have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.